The businessman told the recent graduate that if he just stood in the square beneath his feet for 1 hour, he'd pay him $50. At first, the young man didn't believe him. The next second, the businessman turned and walked away. The young man quickly grabbed his arm, saying he agreed to do it. The businessman promised to return in half an hour, so the young man stepped into the square that would trap him for life. Then the businessman flashed a sinister smile and left. Time flew by quickly. The businessman showed up right on time and handed the young man $50. The young man was thrilled. This was the first money he'd earned since graduation. Then the businessman told him about a job opportunity, still standing in the square, but earning $200 a day. The young man was ecstatic and immediately agreed. Having achieved his goal, the businessman hurried away, leaving the young man standing there alone. Days passed, who knows how many, when suddenly a friend waved at him, inviting him to hang out. But the man was too scared to take a single step, afraid of losing this high-paying job. He watched enviously as his friend left, while he remained trapped on this single tile. The tile was like a prison cell, confining his body and crushing his spirit. One morning, the man suddenly encountered a thief. Then a woman with a cane approached, desperately asking the man to help her chase down the thief. But the young man hesitated, glancing down at his feet. The woman pleaded again, but the young man still wouldn't take a step. He watched the woman walk away in defeat. The young man felt deeply guilty. Soon after, the businessman returned. He handed the young man his generous paycheck. When the businessman left, the curious young man followed him. He wanted to see what the businessman actually did. However, he followed him to a rundown apartment building. He looked up at the lit window and witnessed something bizarre. The businessman had dressed himself up as a clown. The young man was stunned, but at that moment, compared to the businessman, who looked more like the real clown. Years passed, no one knows how many. He had transformed from that fresh graduate into a bearded middle-aged man, watching skateboard kids on the street. He remembered his own skateboarding routes. The next second, the businessman entered his field of vision. He told the man that because of his loyalty and reliability, he was giving him a bigger square and doubling his salary. This gave the confused man instant motivation again. Many more years passed. The man went from middle-aged to an elderly man with white hair. Although his salary had risen to $5,000 a day, he was truly exhausted. When he asked the businessman to let him quit, he suddenly noticed the man's graying whiskers. The man suddenly realized that he had sold his entire life to the businessman. Finally, the old man slowly stepped out of the square. If he could do it all over again, would the man choose to give up his freedom for a lifetime of work, or pursue freedom and live life on his own terms?